Welcome back to another episode of Focus Enter the Cloud. Today, Lloyd is joined by someone who has represented Great Britain in 2 Olympic Games, competed in numerous World and European Championships, and most notably a former British record holder in the 400-metre sprint. So, without further ado, introducing none other than the inspirational Derek Redmond.
So, welcome back everyone to another version of Enter the Cloud. This episode is going to take a slightly different turn, where I've actually invited one of my idols, Derek Redmond, to join me, where we're going to be talking about what's important in the mindset and unleashing the Olympian mindset. So thank you so much for joining me. Didn't know that you was one of my idols, did you?
I didn't, mate, but it's good to be here. And I have gone red knowing that. So, but yeah, it's good to see you, mate.
Yeah, no, really good. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I don't know whether I ever told you actually how I first came across you.
Wasn't it a video you was watching or not?
So here we go, right? So, as I've probably mentioned to you a few times in our conversations, Derek's my mindset coach, so you know, everyone, right? So he knows everything about my ups and downs and stuff, and my mindset and stuff like that, and hopefully ups. So I'm sitting there one morning, and what I've been doing for the last 8 years, ever since I set up Focus Cloud, is my routine is I get up in the morning, go and feed the animals, make a cup of coffee, come back into my office, put these headphones on, right?
Yeah.
And they're noise cancelling headphones, so that's all you can listen to. And then I would put these videos that I look at on YouTube.
Yeah.
And where I came across you was on these videos was I was sitting there doing some work, and then I heard this like, because when you've got them in the background, you're almost not watching the video.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of subconsciously I call it subconsciously training your brain.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just working on another screen. And I heard something in the video, and I went like that and looked at this other screen where the video was on, and I was like, wow. And then I went back, and the truth is I must have watched that flick, that 2-minute clip, about 50 times that morning.
Wow.
And I was just like, why would someone who's hurt their hamstring in a major event like that, most athletes would just stay down, right?
Yeah.
They just would have.
Yeah.
Most human beings would have stayed down. And I was really pumped and infused by what you did.
Thank you.
So then I shared it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And one of my connections on LinkedIn sent me a message saying that's Derek Redmond, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
I knew I'd seen it in the past. I knew that there was this guy that had injured himself and then decided to limp to the end.
Yeah.
And it was very inspirational. But I didn't know who you were at the time in the video.
Right.
Because it was years ago, right?
Yeah.
It was years ago when I first saw it.
Yeah, 30 years ago now, yeah.
Yeah, is it that long?
92.
1992.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and then someone messaged me and said, that's Derek Redmond, and I know him because he's come to do a motivational talk at one of our events. James,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, James, do me a favour. And he went, I'll introduce you now.
Yeah.
And then before I knew it, 2 days later, we were talking on the phone, and we've met a number of times.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's like, so I want to talk about why you did that.
Okay.
And I think everyone that's watching this podcast is a bit like I was at the time. Why would someone do that?
Yeah.
But I want to go back.
Yeah.
I want to go back to your early days before we talk about that moment. Right?
Okay.
Because that's the moment really that made you.
That's the moment everybody
famous.
Knows. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. 100%.
So tell me about your background.
Background. So born in Bletchley, Milton Keynes.
With the roundabouts.
Well, yeah, there wasn't so many roundabouts at the time. So this was before the Milton Keynes that you know existed. So Bletchley, just off the A5, halfway between London and Birmingham, basically. I was born there. Mum and Dad were both from Trinidad and Tobago, came over here as part of the Windrush generation. They weren't on the Windrush, but they were part of that generation of people that came over from the Caribbean to seek a better life. Dad was a lorry driver. Mum was doing adult education at the time, teaching adult education at the time. There was me and my sister. I'm one of two. My sister's 2 years older than me. Born into a council house, hard-working parents, typical strict West Indian parents.
I know that.
You know that?
Really,
absolutely,
my dad was Jamaican.
Well, there you go. Yeah, so, you couldn't parent now the way they parented. They'd be in prison.
No.
But I don't.
I have holding up my jeans at the moment the facility or the tool that
absolutely
my
would use
to keep me in line.
Absolutely, yeah. I've got one of those as well. So yeah. People are thinking, what are they talking about? But anyway, if you know, you know. It's the belt. Yeah. So yeah, it was great. Nothing particularly extraordinary about my, upbringing. So strict parents. We moved from one out of this council house into a little semi-detached house, and then we moved from Milton Keynes to Northampton. As I got older, by the time I was, 11, 12, I was into my sport, into athletics. I was a member of a local club. So my first club was Milton Keynes Athletics Club, and then when we moved to Northampton, joined the club in Northampton. Got into secondary school, got exposed to a lot more sports, and I love sport.
Was you quick?
Yes.
Was you naturally quick?
Just naturally quick, and naturally sports-minded. I loved sport. And even back then, and it's quite funny you kind of introduced me about the Barcelona clip. Unknown to me, my mental training pretty much started from a very young age. I didn't know this, and that was because of my dad.
What age?
God, when I first joined my first athletics club, 7. So I would say from the age of 7, my dad, again, kind of unknowingly, was just using his common sense and his way that he thought you should approach these things. And as a 7-year-old kid being told by your dad, who you got a great relationship, who you love and respect, I just listened, and I'll give you some examples of it. So anyway, got into secondary school. It's obvious that I'm quick and I'm into athletics, and I'm playing football, I play rugby. I think out of all the sports that we did, the only 2 teams I wasn't in was the swimming team and the tennis team. And, gymnastics, I was in that. Football, cricket, rugby, basketball, hockey, all sorts of stuff. But what made me really focus more on my sport was, unfortunately, me and my sister were the only 2 black kids in the school. So we had a lot of crap.
This is early 80s?
Early 80s. Very early 80s. Yeah, late 70s, early 80s. I would say late 70s, early 80s. Loads of crap at school. Won't go into that, but as you can imagine. So for me, my backyard was on the sports field. So when they gave me crap in the playground, I would take it out on them on the sports field, whatever it was. And I made it my mission to make them look stupid in any way I can on the sports field, because I could do that without having to argue or whatever with them. And for me, that was it. I only grew a little bit of popularity was when I was being called up in assembly for being represented for the county or this and that and awards and goodness knows what. And that was my metaphorical kind of middle finger up to all the crap that I had. And I hated school, secondary school. Had a lot of trouble, had a lot of scuffles more than fights, because they last a few seconds, and some I won, some I lost. And, and as I got older, and when I was at school, it was first year, second year, third, fourth, fifth year, none of this year 11, year 12, which I still don't get, and I've had 4 kids go through that process. By the time I got to about the 4th year, everyone thought I was one of the toughest kids in the school, and I wasn't. I just stood up for myself. I just stood up for myself, whether it meant getting a bit of a pasting or I got the better of somebody. And I think that's what kind of set me up a little bit of how to deal with things, was really to tackle them head on, because I had no choice. I'd no, pardon the expression, I had nowhere to run, because it was a lot of people at school that gave me a lot of crap. And that's not a get your violins out thing. No, that was just as it was.
You know what? I had the same thing.
Yeah.
And by the time I was 11 years old, I could run the 100 meters, and I'd run the 100 meters in just over 11, 12, 13. I'd be running in 100 metres in just over 11 seconds.
Right.
You know where I learnt to run fast?
From people.
Running from the kids around my area.
Yeah.
And it's not a violent thing because it's life, right?
Yeah. Well, I did the opposite. I didn't run.
Really?
I just didn't run, and I did in the beginning, but I'd run from A to B and get away from them. So when I first went to my secondary school, first day, brand new blazer, way too big, as you did, looking green as you can. And funny enough, our blazers were green, and I got all the new uniform, all this sort of stuff. And there was a kid, a man, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm in the first year, he's in the fifth year.
Oh,
all right. And he's come up to me, and he's with his mates, and he's giving it this, that, all the names and blah blah blah. And he had a broken leg. He had a cast right up to his thigh. And the story was, during the summer holidays, they were messing around on trials bikes, and he fell off, broke his leg, and this and that. So he was a man as far as I was concerned, because I'm 11 and he's like 15, 16 years of age. So, and so he gives me some lyrics. So me being me, a cheeky little scam, I kicked him in his good leg and ran, because I figured, well, he can't run after me, and I know I could get away from them. I don't know where I'm in school. Anyway, within minutes, his mates caught up with me, beat the stuffing out of me, ripped my arm off my blazers, this and that. And I just went, okay, so this is how it's going to be. So I didn't stop. If somebody was cheeky to me, I'd give it back. My sister was the same. She was 2 years older, and she had a good reputation in the school as well of not someone to mess with. I remember the story of once when she was I wasn't even at the school, she was in a maths class, and the guy behind her was giving her crap. So she stood up in anger, he stood up, so she kneed him straight in the nuts so hard he ended up passing out. So people realised she wasn't going to take crap, and so she was my protection almost, and we kind of looked after each other. And I got to a point, as I say, in the first year where I did run, and I thought, you know what, I'm not doing 5 years of this.
So you're what, 6?
I'm 11 when I went to secondary school.
Oh, okay, so 11.
So this was 11 secondary school. And I said, I'm not running. So by the time I was like sort of 12 now, I just said, I'm not running.
Yeah.
And I just dealt with it face to face, whether they were my year, older, 2 years older, whatever. And as I say, a lot of times it got stopped, got broken up. It was just words. Sometimes it'd be a bit of pushing and shoving. Yeah. Sometimes there'd be a bit of a punch and a kick from someone, and I'd get a few in. And I got to the point where I would just fight back. And I remember when, every time it happened, it was the same thing. Get called to the teacher's office or whatever, and they say, oh, just turn the other cheek. And I say, why am I going to turn the other cheek? Because all they're going to do is spit on that side as well. Yeah. They've already done that side. I turn, they go, no. Yeah. And my thing was, I'm never going to start anything, but I'm going to be the one to try and finish it. Yeah. And I'm not trying to make it I'm brave or anything like that, but it was just an attitude that I took, because I'd had enough already after a year and a bit. Yeah. And as I say, by the 4th year, there was still aggro, not as much, but I'm now one of the older. I mean, the second half of my sporting things are going well. Rugby, basketball and athletics going well for me. So there's a bit of respect from there. There's a few people now who are my allies who I'm playing sports with, and there's one particular guy, and I will name him, Pete Wilson, real good guy. We played a lot of basketball together, and he was 6 foot plus when we were at school, and he kind of protected me quite a lot and had my back. But there was literally a handful of people that had my back when I was at school, all the way through my school career. So that's kind of how I was. Sports-wise, things were going well, and I was running for my county, and I was running for school, and I was at an athletics club as well. And by the last couple of years in my school life, I was kind of juggling with basketball and football. Basketball and athletics.
So you are, 15?
15, and I'm still playing a lot of basketball. 15, 16, I'm playing a lot of basketball and a lot of athletics. And when I was 15, so I was a 100 and 200 metre runner at the time. And when I was 15, I was running for my club, Northampton Phoenix. And I ran the 100, finished 3rd, ran the 200, finished 3rd. And it's a club competition, so it's all age groups, male and female, all events, track and field. And once all the events have been done, you get 8 points for a win, 1 point for 8th. Whoever's got the most points wins that round, and you go on to the next round, and whoever gets the most points wins the league. So the guy who was supposed to run the 400 didn't show up for what reason, I don't know. So the team manager was desperate for someone to run the 400, and he said, look, would you run it? Even if you just jog round, we'll get a point. And that could make the difference at the end of the day. Yeah. So I chatted to my dad, and my dad jokingly said, what have you got to lose besides another race? It's all you're going to lose. So give it a go. I had no idea how to run the race, so we came up with this weird idea of what to do, which I did. A gun went and I sprinted off, slowed down. Didn't know what the hell I was doing. Won it by a country mile and broke the county record for my age group. Yeah, first time ever run a 400.
Wow.
And I wasn't even thinking about the time. For me, 15 years of age, I've won a race.
Yeah.
I finished first.
Because in the 100 and 200,
I'd finished
wasn't
third.
winning.
I wasn't winning, no. There's a guy I trained with who was English schools champion, Dale Hillary. He was quicker than me all the time. So he would always beat me. One of my other training partners, who was about a year older than me, a guy called Tony Blanche, he was quicker than me. So I always finished third to those guys. They were the two, but I was still chasing, and I loved it. Anyway, ran this 400, won it. So for the rest of the season, I ran sort of the ones, the twos and the fours. Didn't win a 1 or a 2, I don't remember, or don't recall winning, but I won all the 400s. And at the end of that year, I said, you know what? I'm going to run 400s, because the training for 1s and 2s is completely different to the training for 4. Right. So I had to commit to the training, which I did. Yeah. By the time I was 16, I finished second in English school, so I've gone from a half-decent club athlete to the second fastest athlete in the country for my age group, to getting my first junior international for England, and then a year later when I'm 17, my first full international for Great Britain. Fast forward 2 years later, I'm ranked in the top 5 in the world and I held the British record. So
your
it
age,
just went,
your age then?
19.
So you're 19, so you go from being probably someone that sounds like I could have beat in 100 and 200.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Arguable, but we'll go with it.
And we won't test it out at the moment, right? We won't test it out at the moment. Although, I would like to do that actually at one point. I would actually like to do that. Yes, I am challenging a ex-Olympic runner to 100 metres dash.
Oh, God.
Anywhere he likes, at any time where he likes. And we'll do it for charity.
Well, do you know what? I'm up for that. I'm up for that, mate. I'm 100% up for that. Do you know? I'm not even worried about losing. I'm just worried about pulling a hamstring. That's all I'm going to say.
No, don't do the hamstring thing.
I don't want to do the hamstring.
I've already had Joel Kirkland do the
right,
hamstring thing when I decimated him.
To be honest with you, I wouldn't pull a hamstring because I wouldn't need to go that quick, to be honest with you. So just enough to stay in front.
Ooh, it's a challenge. I like a challenge.
Do you know the funny thing like that? So I get so many people, my wife being one. So my wife, we've obviously met and got married and kids and all that after my athletics career. So she, unfortunately, wasn't part of my career when I was running. So she only knows what I used to do. Wasn't around seeing me train and this and that. She's always like, because she just sees the prat that puts the bins out on a Thursday night, and, and cleans the cars, and she doesn't know the athlete that side of things. She does, but she doesn't. You know what I mean? Yeah. So she'll say things like, "I reckon I could beat you now because look at you, you're just a regular guy, this and that." And I say, "Don't go there."
I've got to be honest. Ever since we just shook our hands, there's this lion in front of me, and I'm just looking at you as
you know me as me.
It's just how I'm wired, right? And obviously you had to be wired like that to go into the Olympics to a certain extent, right?
But if you were to, I don't know.
I am going to beat you, Derek.
You're not going to beat me, mate. You're not going to beat me.
I'm going to beat you.
You're not, mate.
I'm going
He's
to
not.
beat you.
You're not. We're going to have 58 minutes. If you're going to beat me, no. You're not. He's not going to win. Okay, that's it. Done. Next question, because he's not going to win. How are you going to win? It's a bit like, I don't know, you befriending David Beckham.
What happens if
hold on a minute. Just let me finish this. It's a bit like you befriending David Beckham. Arguably one of the best footballers this country, the world has ever seen. And you're saying, do you know what? Yeah, well, I reckon I'm better than you. I could nutmeg you. I could do this. What I consider to be slow is still quicker than 90% of the world's population could run.
What can you do the 100 metres in?
I don't know. The last time I ran 100, and I'm going back a few years ago, I ran 10.8 or something like that. 10.8.
Yeah. Don't worry about what I just said. It's absolutely fine. I was just joking.
Yeah.
Well,
we're having this race. We're having this race now. I remember a number of years ago, I was doing some personal training. So I was doing some coaching for, I'm not going to say which team it was, but for a Premiership team.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
And their manager at the time, we were at a golf day, and he asked me, would I come and do some stuff with the lads, as he said. So I went and did some stuff. Same thing came out. Really? Oh, yeah, I'll race you. So we did this training session. And I'm crap at football. So they've got me doing these football drills, which I'm all over the place. And then at the end, he said, right, we're going to run the length of the pitch. I ran barefoot. And by the time we started on the touch line at the back, the back line. And by the time we got to level with the penalty box, the other end, I turned round and jogged over the line backwards and watched the rest of them sprinting across
Premier
the
League
line.
footballers?
Premier League footballers.
With any fast players?
A couple of decent players.
Fast players?
Yes, a couple of... It's a Premier League football. Yeah, they had a couple of fast players. Wow. So I won't mention them.
No.
But if anybody knows, you know which team I'm talking about. Again, it was a few years ago, but I'd been long retired. And yeah, so, mate...
Yeah,
it's too late. You said it.
I'll do it. We'll do it for charity.
Oh, mate, it'll be a laugh. Of course it will.
We'll do it for charity.
Yeah. If I were you, I'd finish up and go and get training.
But what happens if I win?
What do you want to happen? If you win,
It's for charity.
Well, how do you want to do this? Do you want to put a bet down and the money goes to charity? I don't know how you want to do it.
Okay. But you've got to give me really good odds.
Oh, here we go. Odds. Look, it's win, lose.
But hold on a minute. You're an ex-Olympian.
You're the one challenging me.
I know.
So then...
But I've already said...
Yeah, I'm an ex-Olympian.
But
I'm an ex-Olympian. My last name was 1992. I will be 60 next year.
60?
I'll be 60 next year.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm going to Vegas, mate. You want to come with?
I think I can be.
Yeah, that's fine. You
So
can't.
you've got to give me good odds. You've got to give me ex-Olympian odds. Right?
Which is what?
Let's say 1 in 4 odds, right? So I'll put money in. We'll do an entry.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we'll have to do a forfeit. And then the forfeit will be X amount of pounds. But if you lose, you've got to pay times 4.
Oh, blimey. How old are you?
46.
46. So you're 46.
Yes.
So you're like 14 years younger than me. So that's got to be maybe take one of those points off. So that's 0.3. We're really not going through this. We're just talking about this bet now.
No, let's come back to that.
Okay, we'll come back to that. But it's
on.
on.
We will do it.
We will do it.
We will
Absolutely.
do it, and we're going to do it for charity, right?
Yeah, we did charity.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, so that's how I kind of got into very whirlwind. I kind of, the athletics thing sort of, I wouldn't say it happened by accident, but it just developed and became, it got to the point. And so by the time I was 19, I went to Oslo, Bislett Games, 27th of July, 1985. I'd ranked about 7th in Great Britain, won that race and came out ranked 5th in the world, broke the British record. And that's pretty much where my whole athletics career
So you
started.
almost fell into this 400, right? Because it wasn't a plan.
No, the 400 wasn't a plan. It was definitely something that, you're right, I fell into. And as I always refer to, I ran my first 400 by accident. But then there's stories to be learnt from that, where, the opportunity was there. And more because of my dad. It was me and my dad, but it was my dad to just... And I never forget the phrase, what have you got to lose besides another race? And for me, one of the things that stops people doing things that they want to do is they're more worried about what other people will say about them. They're afraid of failing.
100%.
And I asked them, what is it about failing you don't like? Because it's not painful. You're going to learn from it one way or another. And what it boils down to, they're more worried about what other people say if they don't achieve whatever it is they say. Most sportsmen and women don't think like that. They will try new things, new diets, new training programs, new techniques, new methodology, new equipment. And if it fails, they'll go, okay, well, that doesn't work. Let's try something. They take it as a learning. And that's kind of what I do. So there's stuff to be learned from, even from what I did in that extent. Yeah. But all the way through that point, my old man wasn't a coach. He didn't know athletics inside out. He wasn't a technical buff when it comes to athletics. Very successful businessman. And all my dad did was take that business mindset attitude and bring that into athletics. Yeah. So a very quick story. A few years prior to, when I was 19, I was still running for Northampton Phoenix, still running 1s and 2s. We've got a competition in Peterborough, which is about an hour from Northampton. And we get on the coach and all the kids are there, parents, mums and dads. And So a bunch of us go, yeah, when we get there, we're going to play football, right? You're in goal, you're doing this, you're doing that. Yeah, I'll play back, I want to play striker. My dad just sat there. We get there, coach stops. As soon as it pulls into the car park, I give my dad my bag and we all get off the coach and we're all trying to find the nearest field. Dad comes off the coach, Derek, come here now. And going back to that West Indian parent, I went, just stop. What do you think you're doing? I said, what do you mean? Yeah, we're playing football. You ain't come here to play football, get here now. And my dad made me sit down and rest and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking over there, they're all playing football. I can see kids with their shirts over their head going, yeah, after they scored, all the usual stuff. And I'm sitting there watching the trap and Dad's saying, right, it's time to go and warm up, this, that, have some fruit, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, meeting goes on. We're on the coach on the way back. Everyone's absolutely knackered. And all kids there, and I'm sitting there and I've got a bag full of trophies, medals and certificates. And my dad's gone, what's that one for? I'm thinking, he knows. I said, that's for the 100, Dad. What that one? Well, that's for the 200. Oh, that's for the long jump. What's this one? Blah, blah, blah. And he went, how did young Lloyd get on over there? He finished 5th. What about young David over there? Not sure what he did. What about Peter down there? I didn't even run because he twisted his ankle playing football. And my dad went, oh. So what does that tell you? And I went, what do you mean? He says, I know when I stopped you playing football, you thought I was the worst dad in the world and you this and that, and oh, it's not fair, blah, blah, blah. But he said, if you want to go and play football, we're going to join a football club. But you weren't here to play football, you were here to compete. Now, if you look at everything that everyone else has done who was playing football and you look at what you've done, what's the biggest difference? And the penny dropped. And my dad gave me lessons like that in life all the time. And from a young age, I took my athletics quite seriously. And I took that professional approach to it.
What age was it?
Oh, literally from then, which I would have been about 13 or 14 years of age.
So 13 to 14, you're still coming, second, third?
Second, third, winning the odd one here and there.
Like taking it very seriously in order
Absolutely,
to come first?
Yeah. Because my dad would always say to me, I don't care what sport you do, I will always take you and support you as much as I can. But there's 3 people's time I don't want you to waste. His time, the coach's time, and my own time.
Yeah.
So he goes, I don't care how good or bad you are, just as long as you are giving it 100%, that's all I ask for. And if you want to stop, we'll stop. And if you want to go and start playing cricket, tennis, rugby, football, swim, he says, your mum and I will support you as and where we can. But I just ask that you give it 100%. As long as you're not wasting our time, that's all I ask for. And I actually thought, as a real, as a kid, it kind of went over your head. But as you get a bit older and these things, start to... And there's so many stories I could give you, about my dad and the things that he would just say to me. I remember when I ran a 400, I got into 400s and I finished second English school, and the guy that beat me was a guy called Kurt Morby from Lincolnshire, and he won the English schools and I came second. And a bit of a, let's just say a very confident young man, and his dad was just as confident, so he used to rub me up the wrong way a little bit. If you're watching this, Kurt, it'd be good to see you again, but you did rub me up the wrong way. And I remember turning up at a meeting just to get some times in. It's called an open meeting. You turn up, pay your £5, tell them your age, tell them your time, you go away. After about 20 minutes they come back and they tell you what heat you're in, so they get the top 8 fastest in 1 minute there. Anyway, we've come back, and a few minutes later we've come back. And I'm in heat 1 because I'm one of the I thought would be the fastest, because the only person who could beat me was Kurt. He's in the damn race. And my heart sank. I thought, oh no, Kurt's in it. So I'm quite nervous because I'm racing Kurt Morby, English school champion. He's beat me. And I'm thinking, in this little... Heats. This is just in a little meeting. It's not even a heat. It's just a little one-off race.
Right.
They call them open meetings. So you just turn up, pay your £5, and you run. You're running for times. It's not a heat or a knockout competition. It's just a little meeting put on by clubs. And I'm really nervous. Oh God. And my coach said, right, we're going to try something different. Because every time I raced Kurt, I'd never beaten him. And he'd always win pretty comfortably, a lot stronger than me. So my coach said to me, we're going to try something different today. I said, what's that? He goes, I want you to go out in the first 200 a lot quicker than you normally do. And by the time we've got 100 metres to go, I want you to be level or in front of Kurt. Put him under pressure, because he's never had that. By the time we've 100 metres to go, the race is won. Yeah. I'm like, oh God. So anyway, I go and warming up and I'm really nervous. And my dad says to me, Derek, why are you so nervous? I said, what do you mean, Dad? I said, I've got to race Kurt. Now I've got to do something. don't even know what I'm doing. And my dad said to me, Derek, don't worry, you're not going to lose this race. And I went, what do you mean I'm not going to lose this race? He goes, you're not going to lose this race. One of two things are going to happen. You're either going to finish first, or if you don't finish first, you'll learn something. The only way you lose this race is if you don't finish first and you don't learn anything, then you've lost the race. Anyway, I go out suicidal for the first 200. I'm miles in front. Kurt comes back because he's a stronger finisher than me, and we end up dipping for the line, and he got it. They gave him the win. So I was really disappointed because I thought I'd nearly beat him. And after the race, I'm a bit dejected, head down, this and that. And my dad came out and says, what did you learn? Oh, Kurt Morby's better than me, I can't beat him. I said, no. What did you learn? Seriously, pick his head up and stop being silly.
Away from mine.
Yeah, not that far away from him. And my dad and my coach had a conversation. And basically, the learning was, you can afford to go out a lot quicker in the first 200. Maybe not as quick as you did, but we can work on that. So I went back into training, and we worked on my first 200 metre pace to be quicker than what it used to be, but not as suicidal as it was in that race. The next time I raced Kurt with this new way of running 400, I beat him, and he never beat me again. So the point of that is, as my dad said, and this comes back to what I was saying about when people hate to, sometimes don't like trying things because they're afraid of failing, quote unquote. In that race, it looked like from the outset I failed. I hadn't failed. I was trying something that didn't work the way that we did it. But we were heading in the right direction. The formula needed tweaking. The process it needed a little bit of looking at. And we messed around with it, tweaked around with it, got it right, and that's what kind of set me off. So my dad was full of it, and I could sit here for the next 3 hours talking about lots of little things at the time that my dad would just say to me, because it was just his natural
Here's a question
way
for
thinking.
you.
Yeah.
That no one's probably ever asked you before.
Go on.
Would you have been an Olympian without your dad?
No. I don't even know if I would have been in the sport without my dad.
Yeah.
Great question. No one's ever asked me that.
I think so.
I don't even think I would have been in the sport if it wasn't for that. Or if I was, I wouldn't have been as focused.
You wouldn't have been as good.
I wouldn't have been as prepared to give everything. I wouldn't have been as focused. I wouldn't have been as committed if it wasn't for my dad. 100%.
Sounds like he kind of set you up to have the freedom to try anything you wanted, and you wouldn't lose any of his love.
No.
If you didn't win.
If I chose not to do it.
Yeah.
And as I say, for my dad, if I said to my dad, Dad, I'm really not enjoying this, he would have said, okay, well, why not? And I said, he would have, fine. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And that's how my dad was. He never put me under pressure. He did push me, but in the right way.
Yeah.
So we moved into a village location years later, and it was a small village we lived in. It was a third of a mile once round. So I used to do, in the winter, 3-mile runs. So I'd have to do 11 laps of this bloody village, or whatever it was, just over 11, whatever it was. And we used to time the laps. And my dad, when I first used to do it, I used to plod round. And every now and then my dad will, unknown to me, sit at the front of the house up in his bedroom, and he would time the odd lap and then come back. And I didn't know, and he'd say, did you know lap 4 was this time, lap 7 was this time, and lap 9 was this time? We need to try and see if we can pick the pace up a little bit. Yeah. And he goes, just for yourself, because I'm not a coach, but let's just see if you can push it. And it got to the point where either he or my sister would time the laps, around the village. Now, he didn't have to do that, but again, he wasn't saying, go on, Derek, run harder. He was just saying, let's see if we can just edge it a little bit, set this as a goal. Yeah. So now you can do 6 laps in this time. Let's see if you can do 7 laps in that time before they start to slow down. Let's see if you can do 8 laps. When you can do all 11 laps in that time, let's try and do 10 in that time and make the first one a little bit quicker, and then the second one comparable to the first, and then we push it up. And he says, as the years and time go, you'll always get slightly quicker and quicker and quicker. So he made me...
It's almost like a game. He was playing a game.
Just make it, just enough to push. And if I didn't, he'd go, all right, and how did you feel? And I'd say, oh, God, I'm knackered, Dad, this and that. It might be windy, it might be raining. He'd say, well, it's hammering down with rain, it's windy, you weren't never going to do that, but don't let that defeat you next time.
I never had the pleasure to meet your father.
I wish you had. It was great, man.
I wish I had.
Yeah, brilliant man.
If I'd have ever sat down with your dad and on a 1-to-1 and said, did you know that he was going to be an Olympian? What do you think he would have said?
He would have said, I think he would have said, I had the ability. He definitely would have said, my sister had more talent than me, but just hated the sport. So Karen did have more talent than me, but just hated it. But he would also agree that I had, through what he had done, I had that competitive edge that was always going to make me compete well.
Yeah.
So yes, I think he would have said yes, with a combination of the ability that I had and the attitude that I developed and the competitiveness that I developed, he would have said yes.
Yeah.
100%.
It's interesting. So you almost kind of architected your career along the way without
knowing.
Yeah.
Do you know there's
I
a
wonder if
film?
he did
You know the film King Richard?
Yes.
I watched that. Yeah. I watched that only a year ago, and I sat there like this at the TV screen, and Maria sat looking at me like that, and she said, "That's your old man, isn't it?" And I went, "Yeah." And there was so much of my dad in that film.
Yeah.
It was untrue. Not to the full extreme. I'm never going to say my dad was exactly like that, but my dad knew and saw things way ahead of time before I was even thinking about it. And he had that kind of sixth sense to say, this is what you're destined to do. This is what's going to be happening in your future, as long as you stay within these lines, so to speak.
You know, when I first watched King Richard, and anyone who's not seen the film,
Go and
King
watch
Richard,
it.
Go and watch it.
Yeah, it's a great film.
You know what it said to me? It wasn't so much about how Richard, I forget what's his son?
Williams.
Richard Williams. So how Richard Williams pushed Venus and Serena. It said to me that natural talent never existed. It never existed in the first place.
No.
Because you can't have two daughters and say before they're born, these are going to be world champion tennis players, and then it happens. That's not possible.
Well,
so
I'll take it one stage further. The bit in the film that absolutely blew my mind was, because in the early days, Venus was the big star.
Yeah.
And Serena was sort of slightly in her shadow. And then it got to the point where Venus was doing her thing and something happened at a tournament, and Serena walks, I don't want to spoil the film for anybody who hasn't seen it, but she kind of walks onto the court where her sister was playing earlier on. And she's a bit dejected because she feels that all the attention is on, from her dad and everybody in the world, is on Venus.
Yeah.
And he walked down and said, "Don't worry, you are the one who's destined to be
I remember
the absolute superstar." I can't remember it word for word,
Yeah.
but he basically said, "Bide your time, because actually you are the one."
Venus is going to be great. You're going to be a world beater or something,
Or something like
along
that,
those
yeah.
lines.
Green is, yeah, something like that. And it was like, wow, he knew that her time wasn't going to be yet.
Yeah.
Like any young person, you want it all now.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, so for me, that was the bit in the film that just blew my mind. Brilliant film. If you haven't seen it, sorry for the spoiler, but it's definitely worth going to see.
I'm more than happy to spoil it for everyone. So what happens at the end? Okay, so that's a great question. I wasn't planning on asking you that question.
That's all right.
But as we've been talking, I thought, I wonder if his dad actually knew that this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
This is where it's going to lead, as long as he does this, this, and this.
I think, yes, he did. And I think he was also just paving the way for the best opportunity for me and giving me the best chance that he could give me. And whether that was with financial support, whether that was with, just giving me the support that I needed, whether it be physio, a bit of advice, whatever. Not that he was a physio, but making sure I get to the physio, making sure I've got he advised me on when I had to change clubs because I was getting better, so I needed clubs at better league. We talked about it and where was the best ways to go and this and that. And so it was always there to give me the best opportunity that I could have. And it was almost like it was for me to screw up.
Yeah.
Because he was doing everything that he could, physically and mentally.
Yeah, that's wicked.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward. So you're this great 400 meters runner, and then all of a sudden you get the opportunity to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So my first Olympics was 88, Seoul. And it happened very simply. I qualified for the team. You know, I was one of the top 400 meter runners in the world at the time. I'd had a few injury problems, so things were.
What's that like when you're the best in the UK? You're a good kind of local national athlete, and then all of a sudden you're on. What happens to your? Is it easy to kind of get away with yourself?
Okay, do you know? Yes, it can be easy to get away with yourself, but what actually happens is nothing. Because you are doing what you do best. So, and what I mean by that is, I was doing the same thing whether I was running for my club, whether I was running Olympic Games, just trying to win a 400 metre race.
Yeah, but Derek, things change, right, on the outside.
But that's right. On the outside, they change. But from my point of view, it's exactly the same. So I worked a few years ago with a motocross rider, and he was an international motocross rider. When he competed for his club, technically he was brilliant. His start, once the gates dropped, he was out into the first corner and all this sort of stuff. At international competition, he wouldn't perform that start as well. So if you took his start from a club level, it was quicker than the same guy starting at international competition. And his dad and his a couple of couldn't understand it why. So they brought me in to have a chat with him this and that anyway. And I said to him, talk me through your warm-up at club level. So he told me what he did. And I said, now talk me. Do you do exactly the same at international? Oh, no. I said, well, talk me what you do at international level. And he did. And his warm-up and his mental process was totally different.
Why was that?
That's exactly what I asked him. So I said, why is that? And he performed a few weeks ago at the same circuit. Club level was brilliant. Yes, he was going to win because talent-wise he was better. Yeah. But from a technical point of view, he rode worse at international level than he did at club level. So I said to him, why don't you warm up at international level the same? Because you're doing exactly the same thing for the same laps on the same bike. There's no difference. The prize might be different. The people who are watching you might be different, but your bike is the same bike, your equipment is the same bike, you are the same person, the track is the same track. Yes, obviously there's different ruts and this and that, but generally. So whether I was running for my club, just for points, or whether I was running for an Olympic gold medal, which was medals, fame and fortune, my preparation was exactly the same, because when I'm in that lane, it's still 400 metres run round. The prize might be different, but actually the process I'm going through is exactly the same. So I was able to zone out what it meant. It's just another 400. And there's a phrase my dad used to say. There was two things my dad used to say to me. It's just another 400 and it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time before you win this race. It's also a matter of the time that you run, yeah. So it was kind of a bit of a double-edged sword. And that was, again, going back to, it's just another 400. Go and do what you've been doing since you were 15 years of age. Yeah. Rather it being on a cinder track in Northampton, it's now on a Mondo surface track that happens to be in the Olympic Stadium. But you can kind of take away some of that pressure, and because that's all external. And that's why so as I was going through the ranks, it was just what I did. You kind of take it for granted and you just crack on and do what you do. You train, the times get quicker. You race, the times get quicker. But you're just doing what I was doing. But the process was no different.
You're 19, you're a national runner. You said we was at national level there, right?
Oh, well, international at that
stage.
Yeah.
International level.
Yeah.
And then you burst onto the Olympic scene. Let's say
that was 3 years later. So I was 22 at my first Olympics.
Okay. And then, then you're burst into this kind of international stardom, where you come back to the UK and everyone knows who you are.
Yeah, but my first Olympics was bad. So I went into those Olympics injured. I had Achilles tendon problems for the whole training camp and goodness knows what. And I actually snapped my Achilles warming up for the first round. So I didn't actually compete in the Olympics in '88. So my Olympic experience wasn't great. So my focus wasn't, oh my God, this is the Olympic Games. My focus was, crap, we need to sort these Achilles out. Am I going to be able to run? And if I am I going to be quick enough? Yeah. Because I was good enough to make the final and challenge for a medal. Yeah. And Great Britain was good enough to at least win a bronze medal in the relay, maybe a silver. Definitely a silver was that push against the Americans for the gold. So I've got a chance of coming away from my first Olympic Games with at least two finals, and if all went well, 2 medals. There was a possibility. Didn't happen at all. So my focus was elsewhere. It wasn't on. And the thing about competing over Olympic Games or any major championships, I think there's always two types of athletes. Let's take an Olympic Games. There'll be people who'll go to Paris this year who, as far as they're concerned, have won their Olympic gold. In other words, they're an Olympian. They've made the Olympic Games and that has been their dream. Nothing wrong with that at all. But there's also a much smaller group of Olympians whose Olympic gold happens to be an Olympic gold. They are capable of winning Olympic gold. There are people that can live for the rest of life and say, as I can say, I'm an Olympian. And I will be an Olympian to the day I die. I'm not happy with my Olympic career because I believe I was good enough to win a medal. If you take Usain Bolt, do you think he would be happy to say, I'm an Olympian?
No.
Of course he wouldn't, because that guy is was more than capable of being an Olympic champion. So there's kind of, you need to work out what's your gold. Your gold might be just making the final. Anything beyond that is a bonus. Because you also have to be realistic with these things. Your goal might be, I want to make the Olympic teams in weightlifting, in judo, in this. It doesn't matter what sport. And you do it. And anything you go and do, for me, fortunately or unfortunately, my aim was to win medals at major championships. Because I believed, and based on performances and times, I had the ability, if everything went to plan and, got it all right, I was in the hunt for medals. So competing at Olympic Games or whatever, for me, was just taking care of business. It was business. I did not enjoy the Olympics, but I didn't go out sightseeing. I didn't go do this. I just went to those games to do one thing. And it wasn't to get off the coach and run off into the field and play football. It was to do exactly what my dad made me do when I was 13 years of age, and focus on things, make sure the diet's right, I'm training every day, I'm resting, I'm doing all the things, all my kit's right, I've got the right spikes, I've tested this out, I've gone and walked around the track, see which way the wind goes, all the stuff that not every athlete does, but I did, because that was all part of my preparation,
Your routine.
my routine. And there are Olympians that go, and I've got nothing on one of it, who may be in a relay for argument's sake, so they might get a chance where they're not going to run, but they enjoy it. They embrace that. I'm at the Olympic Games. They go to the opening ceremony. I didn't go to the opening ceremony. I don't want to stand around for 4 hours. Now, that's not me being a prima donna, but standing around for 4-5 hours a few days before you're going to run is not really the best thing to be doing. So no, if I could get out of going to the opening ceremony, I would. I didn't. For Seoul, we flew out to Japan, stayed, and our training camp was there. Some people went from Japan to Seoul to be involved in the opening ceremony and get the... I didn't. I waited a couple of days before round one before I flew out, because I wasn't there for the bright lights and all the thing. I was there for work. Yeah. And people might say, oh, it's a sad thing. My wife says, oh, you didn't go and see that. No, I was there for work. I wasn't there to sightsee and this and that. So one of our life's dream, and we're slowly working our way through it, is to go to all the countries that I went to, whether it was for Olympics or just a one-off race, and actually experience those countries, rather than going from the airport to a hotel to a track, back to the hotel, back to an airport, back home.
You haven't seen them.
Because I haven't seen those countries. They're just stamped in a passport, and I'll tell you the results, but I can't tell you anything about that country. And that's how and so for me, my athletics career was like that. So I didn't necessarily feel the pressure of, oh my God, this is Olympics. Yes, I knew it was Olympics, and I knew the athletes were there. But if I did what I knew I could do, and everything had gone well up there, I knew I was going to be in a chance to make myself proud. Whether that was making a final, whether that was winning a medal, whether that was winning gold, I knew I could do what. So it was about me taking care of business leading up to those championships, and more important, delivering it when it mattered, stepping up to that plate when it mattered. But if you had done all the work leading up to it, then there's no reason why it's not going to happen. Yeah. When it comes to any race, any competition, and we're talking Olympic Games, an hour before that Olympic final, there's nothing I can do physically about it. I've done all the training. I can't say, I'm going to pop into the gym and pump some iron just to get some extra strength. You're not going to do anything. There's nothing physically you can do to me. It's all mental. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time studying athletes, sometimes just by staring at them when I see them around, thinking, I wonder what he or she's thinking. And they've just won a medal or something. You see them in the canteen or whatever. what were they going through the last day? What were they thinking an hour before, 2 hours before, 3 hours before? What was said to them? What wasn't said to them? I kind of wanted to know what made these athletes consistently win, because there were other athletes who were good but didn't have the consistency of winning. And I said, well, why haven't you got it? Because you got the ability and you have. And I'm not a psychologist, but I kind of started getting into the psyche and psychology of what makes people consistently win. And I've given it away there in the first word, and it's that consistency. But it's not just a consistency in the competition, it's a consistency in everything that they do, from the minute they say, I want to go to the Olympics 8 years prior, or I want to win Olympics 8 years prior, to actually standing on the track and the gun going and them delivering that performance to get them that
Usain
medal.
Bolt said, wasn't it? He said he said the end race is the easy part.
Absolutely. You speak to any Olympic or world champion and say, what's the easiest thing you've done? Go and compete at that major championship and win that medal, or train for it. Everyone will tell you going to that competition and winning that medal is the easiest bit. The hard part is the training.
Yeah.
And funny enough, the harder you train, the easier it becomes. Because that's where all the work's done.
Yeah.
In the training, in that physically and
same
mentally.
In business, right?
Exactly.
It's exactly the same in business.
Yeah.
It's all about your routine. It's about what you put in. It's about how you communicate, how you deliver stuff, how you do this, how you do that.
But it's also staying consistent with it.
With it, yeah.
Come hell or high water, the good, the bad, the indifferent days, you've got to stay consistent with it. You've got to just keep on going on and on and on and on. I always use Linford Christie as an example. I knew Linford in my early 80s. 83, 84 is where I started being in the same arenas as seeing Linford Christie. Now, Linford Christie in 1983, 1994 wasn't the number one 100-metre runner. I've seen Linford, I refer to it as Linford earned his stripes. There's one athlete that's earned his stripes, it's Linford Christie. Lots of them have, but I'm using him as an example. I used to see him getting knocked out in the heats of the national championships. Right, in the 3As, he'd finish third, fourth in the heats. Then, next year or the year after, he'd make it into the final and finish fourth or fifth in the final. And then he'd finish third in the final. And then all of a sudden, he never ever gave up. When he was being beaten by people, he never ever gave up. And for me, his world changed in 1986. He went to the European Championships and won gold. And then from that moment on, that's where the name Linford Christie became kind of a household name, and he went on to win absolutely everything: a world champs, Olympic Games, Commonwealths, Europeans, and I think at one time he held all 4 titles at once. Yeah. Now, most people think Linford was born a champion. He wasn't born a champion.
Including me.
Yeah, no.
I grew up watching Linford Christie in the 100 metres, which is why I was interested in the 100 metres sprint.
Right.
And I only ever saw Linford Christie winning.
Yeah, absolutely. He didn't come out his mum's womb winning. He had to go through that process. But the thing that I love about Linford's story, and he possibly doesn't, I don't think we've had one, he would get, and there's a saying, there's a part of Rocky, one of the Rocky films, where he's talking to his son. He goes, no matter how many times you get knocked down, get up again. And people always say to me, what's your version of success? And I always say, getting up one more time and you've been knocked down. So if you've been knocked down once, get up. If you've been knocked down 1,000,000, get up 1,000,001 times. Linford was knocked down time and time and time again. There was times when, I don't know, there would be a European clubs competition or a European Cup team and Linford wouldn't be picked. And there'll be this and that. But he kept on coming back. He took those knocks. He took those hits. And it paid off. He was not born an Olympic champion. He was not born a champion. He was born destined to be a champion, and he didn't let anything get in his way. And I can remember being at Crystal Palace at the 3As and seeing a Linford who wasn't sponsored. Everyone knows him as being sponsored by Puma. He wasn't sponsored. He had raggedy old kit. He was this, but he was a hungry kid who was never going to give up. And he'd get beaten, and he'd come back in the 200, maybe get through to the final, didn't win, come back the next year. You see him at races, at clubs, because he was Thames Valley Harris. I see him get beaten by people. He would stick it out. And all of a sudden, in 86, that's when the tables turned. And the Linford that you know was born. But the Linford I'd seen before that was 2 different people. He earned his stripes. He deserves every single medal, adulation, applause that he gets, because that guy earned his stuff. He walked over glass, hot ashes, you name it, to get to where he got. And people don't see that. They just say, oh, there's this guy, how do you pronounce his name? Liv. Oh, yeah, he's just won the Europeans. Oh, he's won the Commonwealths. Oh, he's won the Worlds. Oh, he's won the Olympics. Oh, he's broken the British record. Oh, he's done this. That's the Linford that was developed. Yeah, very fast. That was the Linford that was developed from the previous Linford.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't see. Athletes have had to earn their stride. And that's just one example.
Yeah.
Most sportsmen go through that. You're not born known.
Do you believe it's only in sports?
No, not at all. Of course I don't. I believe it's in business. That's what I advocate and talk about. Not at all. I know I'm going to be corrected on the amount, but if you look at our friend who owns Amazon, Jeff Bezos, Amazon wasn't his first company.
No.
He has been bankrupt, as far as I know, well over a dozen times. And then he started Amazon in his garage, and he had a bit of blanket with the word Amazon, and all he sold was a few books.
Yeah.
But he went through all of these trials and tribulations. He did a Linford. He earned his stripes. He got battered. He got beaten. He got knocked down. Gone bankrupt. No, this, that. And you look at a lot of what he went through. Colonel Sanders is another one. Bloke got kicked out of the army, kicked out of home, came up with this idea about this chicken, and people said, "Don't be stupid." Started selling it door to door. It failed, and he knocked on the doors of so many people before, in his 60s, I think he was 62.
65.
Was it 65?
65.
65.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's in his 60s. Yeah.
But he launched
No,
KFC.
got absolutely, and he got absolutely battered down, but kept on going. So that answers your question. Of course it happens in business. It happens in life.
Yeah. In life in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Mm.
So you're then in Barcelona for the Olympics, and this is kind of. Would you agree that this is what's made you famous, even more famous than you already were?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. And I say unfortunately, it's not unfortunate, but I mean, I've won a world championship title. Most people know me more for what happened in Barcelona than I do for that. So with 100%, this is the thing that people know. And here's the funny thing. If you went out on the street and interviewed 100 people and said, "Do you know who Derek Redmond is?"
Yeah.
More than most would say no. But if you said, "Do you remember this happening back in 1992?" people would go, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy."
Yeah.
And then they go, "Well, that's Derek Redmond." Oh yeah, I get that all the time.
I've had this week. This week and last week when I've been speaking about you coming on to do the podcast with me.
Yeah.
They go like, "Who?"
Yeah.
And I go, "The guy that he done his hamstring." Oh yeah. Yeah. So
I get it all the time.
it was such an inspirational moment, Derek. Honestly,
I was in Denver a couple of weeks ago doing a presentation, and I've done my presentation. It's about 800-900 people, and I've come off stage and people said, "Oh, great presentation, fantastic presentation, all this sort of stuff." And it was typical of comments that I get from presentations. And as you know, I've been speaking for 27 years, and I get it all the time. "When you went on stage, I didn't have a clue who you were, but I saw the video. I didn't realise that was you. Oh my God. My dad and I watched this last week. My wife and I saw this. My husband and I showed this to my kids."
you're on multiple videos from all walks of life.
Yeah.
And I keep coming across it.
I know. Well, you sent me one the other
I
day.
sent you one. I WhatsApped you one the other day.
2 days ago, yeah.
Literally,
yeah.
and I was like, I don't even know you was on this.
Yeah.
It's to do with Michael Phelps and
That's right. Yeah,
overcoming and talking about him at a 15-year-old, and you're on it. Your moment of inspiration has no doubt inspired, without you even knowing, multiple business owners, because it inspires me.
It's inspired me,
and other people.
Yeah.
It's inspired other athletes.
Yeah.
It's inspiring people from all walks of life without you even knowing it. And the funny thing is, they probably don't even know who you are.
Absolutely. I get so many messages from people, even to this day, and it's 30 plus years ago, saying, "Oh my, I showed this to my son for the first time, and he's, or as I say, people say, 'Oh, my son, they played school.' I said to my son." So I get a lot of people going, "Oh, I said to my son that all my kids that you were coming to speak at our event today," and I say, "I don't know who," and they go, "Oh, that's the guy who did his leg with blah blah blah," and they weren't even born when it happened.
Yeah.
In some cases, the parents of the children weren't even born when it happened. So I mean,
everyone knows there was a guy.
everyone knows that the guy.
There
that
was
did
a
that.
guy.
Yeah.
Everyone knows there was a guy
That's
that
right.
went down, pulled his hammy,
And his dad came on.
and then his dad.
Yeah.
Well,
he got up and it wasn't the dad.
It wasn't your dad that changed it for me, right? What changed it for me was when I was watching it. I was a bit like, why would someone? That's a mindset. That is a mindset right there. You take that into business or any other walk of life, you will win.
Okay.
And then, as you was hopping around, and I'm like that, in the morning with my coffee and going, this is great, this is great, this is great. That's what was happening, right? And then your dad comes on.
Yeah.
And I'd just lost my dad.
Right.
I think I just lost my dad.
Right.
So then I thought, that's like.
So it hit you double whammy.
It hit me double whammy. Yeah. It was
yeah.
inspirational, and I just thought that was inspirational from your dad.
Yeah.
And I just thought.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
there's two sides to it. I mean, I'll come on to why I did it, but one of the things, and my wife said this to me many years ago, she says, one of the things that makes it so memorable, she says, and as you said, there's two sides to it. There's you getting up and doing what you did, which is one side of things, but then there's also what your dad did is the second side. And she says, and Maria said this, she said, do you know if it was a teammate, your coach, no, wouldn't have had the same effect.
Yeah.
The fact that it was your dad. So many more millions of parents and dads, not just dads, but parents can resonate with that because it's what a parent would do for their child. It doesn't have to be an Olympic stadium. The metaphor happened to be set in an Olympic stadium, but or the real event happening, but the metaphor spreads into picking your kid up when they fall at a park, or helping them through college, or through a situation in life, a setback. Or it doesn't have to be necessarily even on the sports field. It's what it represents.
Sitting down, helping your child with their homework.
Yeah.
It's about picking your kid up when they drop.
Yeah.
It's about consoling your son when he misses his penalty in his cup final.
Whatever it be.
It's the same thing.
Absolutely.
The connection is the
it's
same.
the same, yeah. And that's why...
It just so happened to do it on the world stage.
Yeah, which it wasn't planned. I mean, obviously it wasn't planned.
No. No.
It was... Look, again, if we go back to some of the stuff that I've already said, I had spent years for this moment. Let's just take the previous 4 years. So 1988, my first Olympic goes belly up.
Yeah.
Because of all the Achilles, and I didn't run and this and that. I didn't even. So the next 4 years was just laser focused on making up for what happened in 88, and I couldn't be any more hungry, any more focused, any more desperate to win 2 medals, because that's what I was going to Barcelona for. And again, injury problems and this and that and blah blah blah, but we managed to get ourselves there. So there were 4 rounds: a heat, a second round, a semi-final, and a final. And again, what I said earlier, I just had a job to do. Job 1 was the heat. So it's the first 3 to qualify. I always win my heats, not that I want to run super fast, but I just want, first of all, send a mental message to everyone in the race. But also, if you win your heat, the next race you go into the draw for a lane. You go into the lane draw, or the draw for the middle lanes 3, 4, 5 or 6. If you qualify and you don't win your heats, you go into the draw for lanes 1, 2, 7 or 8. It's not bad, but I want to make the best possible situation for me. So it's all about a little bit of focus. It's a little bit of selfishness. I'm going to get me one of them 4 lanes. And I did just enough to win. And I ran quite a quick time. I was in great shape and I jogged over the line. I remember going back to my coach after the heat and saying, I'm running too quick. And my coach said, no, you're not. You're just in great form. I said, I didn't expect to run that. I expected to run 45 and a half seconds and qualify. I ended up running 45 flat, which back then was a decent time for the heat. And 45.03 I ran. And my coach said, no, you're just in great shape. And I was panicking, thinking, oh, God, I've peaked. No, you're in great shape. And I didn't even break a sweat. And my coach said, do exactly the same tomorrow, because that's all you're going to need to do. So the second day in the second round, instead of running 45.03, I ran 45.02, so 100th of a second quicker. And I won by even further. And again, just easy, didn't break out. Could have done it in a pair of wellies. And qualified nice and easy. It's going to be like when I beat you over 100. Anyway, moving on. Then it came to the night before the semi. Yeah. Then it came to the night before the semi, and I sat down with my dad and my coach, and I'd run quite easy. So it was a semi-final, a day's rest, and the day after that was the final. So we decided, no messing about, run this one a little bit harder. Don't go so easy. And I won't bore you with the way that I ran each of the rounds, but I ran the first 200 exactly the same as if it was the final. So it's a bit of each round is a bit of a practice run. So I'll run the first 200 like it's the time I want to in the final, and then depending how far I'm in front, I'll switch off and do enough just to qualify. And I do the same the next day, and so first we're going to do exactly the same in the semi-final, and I'm feeling good. Everything's going well. The confidence is there. Physically, I'm in shape. Mentally, I'm in shape. And you need to win at that level. You need to be firing on both of your cylinders. One's the physical cylinder, and one's the mental cylinder. You ain't going to win with one of those. You can be physically in shape, but if you're not there mentally, ain't going to work. And you can be mentally in shape, and obviously you're not there physically, it's not going to work. And I was there with both of those. And I remember, again, the last time I saw my dad before the race, we sat in and he turned around to me and he said, "It's just a matter of time." It's that little thing. I went, yeah, go on, son, go do your thing. And I went off. Everything's great. I went to the track. I know what I've got to do. There's 70,000 people in the stadium, whatever it was. Don't care. There could have been 70 billion people. Made no difference. I know what I'm doing, this and that. I know what I've got to do. I know the first 90, what I've got to do, pick up into the back straight, blah, blah, blah. I've got my race plan. So we go out onto the track, and, all the mind games with other athletes when you get on, just doesn't bother me. I'm doing what I need to do. Couldn't give a monkey's about anybody else. This is the selfish side, number one. And then you've got to have that confidence. And I say this, there is a thin line between confidence and arrogance, and you have to walk it. I'm walking out there knowing you lot are going to have to try and beat me. I ain't got to beat you. You got to try and beat me. I'm not saying that to anybody, because that would be arrogant. But confidence-wise, I'm just looking. I've got the reigning Olympic champion, training partner of mine, Steve Lewis, when I was at UCLA, in the race. Lovely guy. He's already run quicker than me. He's the reigning Olympic champion. He's already won 2 Olympic medals. I know I'm going to beat him in that semi-final. I know I'm going to beat him in that semi-final. All the other guys. Roberto Hernandez, one of the fastest in the world. I already beat him in the heat. Mate, you're dust. I know this is going to happen. So on your marks, get set. And I was the fastest reaction out of the blocks. Get into my running. I'm going down the back straight. Now here's the weird thing. As I'm running down the back straight, I heard this noise. And internally, I thought it was something in the crowd. And it was my hamstring going. But the thing that went through my head was, come on, Redmond, concentrate. Because when you are focused and everything's going well, everything's blocked out around you. Yes, you can hear the crowd roaring, but I couldn't pick out you in row 7, seat number 213, going, "Go on, Derek." I can't hear that. I'm just hearing a drone, and I can hear my on my feet and all this sort of stuff. I can hear other athletes around me. I know I can hear my breathing, all that sort of stuff. And I hear this noise, and the first thought was, come on, concentrate, because I'm thinking it's a setup. And I carried on running at the same speed. I've just pulled hamstring, or it's just popped. And then it was only about 3 or 4 strides later that I felt the pain and everything, and instantly I realised what it was. And the first feeling was, not again. Disappointment was just frustration, disappointment, annoyance, this and that. So it's very painful, very painful. And again, not to upset you, but in a 400, I would run the back straight in 10.2 seconds, and that's in a 400. So I've run the first 100. The back straight would be 10.2, and then roughly. So
10.2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
how fast would you be with a pulled hamstring then?
Well, I was going at one point. Anyway, so I don't think that's going to work. Yeah, he's trying. Anyway. So I mean, a lot of pain, and I pull up and this and that, and I remember slapping the track and going, "Oh, why me, and all this sort of stuff." Now, this is the funny thing. That went on for about 10, 15 seconds, so the race is still continuing.
Yeah.
The athletes have got about 120 metres to go there or there. They haven't quite got into the home straight, maybe 130 metres. And I remember just stopping all my whining and moaning. And I remember something just said to me, it's the Olympic semi-final. And I remember quickly looking up and seeing, and by this time there'd been a couple of, medical staff to try and get on. I'm just pushing them out of the way and getting up. Yeah. And the thought that went through my mind was, if I get, because the qualifying procedure was, first 4 in the semi will go through to the final 2 days later.
Yeah.
I've got 250 metres to go and a hole about the size of a 50p piece in my hamstring. They've got 120, 130 metres to go and they're all fine and they're flying. Yeah. And the thought that went through my mind is, if I get up now and start running, I'll catch them and I'll finish, I'll qualify.
Yeah.
Now that was my mental state.
That's your Olympic mindset coming out.
So the cylinders were firing, the mental one is going, the physical one's gone, and that's broken down. But this one's going. So my mind is saying, get up and carry on running. So I got up and I start hobbling. I get to 200 metres, so I hobble 50 metres and I get to the 200 metre mark. And you'd think I would have clocked, but the mental cylinder piston is still going. And I get to the 200 metre mark, and my thought wasn't it's over, was let me have a look across the track and see how much I'm gaining on them. And when I looked across sort of the field, if you like, where the field events are, and across the track, it was empty, obviously, and the race had finished. And it was only at that time that I realised that it was over. So if you like, the mental side had now caught up with the physical side, and they're both sort of down here. And then instantly, I decided to make preparations for 1996. And that was, I decided that if I finished the race, at least I could go for the next 4 years saying I finished 8th and got knocked out, which I thought was better than saying I didn't finish at all. So I decided I was going to finish this race. I just want to finish, because I could live with myself finishing 8th and getting knocked out, but I couldn't live with not finishing at all. And that was the reason I just wanted to carry on. I'd already committed and I was going to finish this race.
Love that.
And then the last thing because for me it was, that's the foundations to work on for the next 4 years. Okay, first Olympics, didn't even make it onto the track. Second Olympics, at least we made the semi-final. Third Olympics, so the foundations were solid.
Yeah.
And that was going to give me something to work on. Last thing I expected was obviously my dad to come out onto the track. Yeah. And obviously what happened. So that was the process that my mind went through.
Interesting.
And I remember seeing it back for the first time hours later. And I was in the apartment that I was staying in, and there's a load of other athletes there. John Regis was there, this person, that person, blah, blah, blah. And it came on the TV in Spanish and blah, blah, blah. And the guys were like, hey, and they just stopped and they didn't know what to do, and they just kind of looked at me. And Regis, who's one of my best friends, he was like, what do we do? And this sounds like he was being horrible. He wasn't, but he's got like a smirk on his face. He's like, oh shit, this is a real weird situation. What do we do? Yeah. And I looked at the TV, and the first thing I said was, because I saw me hobbling, I thought, bloody hell, I thought I was running a bit quicker than that. And everyone just burst out laughing. And, and they hugged me this and that and said, you know what, blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff. But it was one of those things where I had no idea the reaction it was going to get. I didn't do it for Queen and Country.
No.
I didn't do it for Team GB. I didn't do it for my family. I had to do that for me.
For you, yeah.
Call it selfish, but that moment. And the world could have gone, what a complete plonker, or what a hero. I was thankful and grateful that they went...
You've obviously seen that clip numerous times, like I have, right?
Yeah.
I've seen it well over 100 times now.
Yeah.
Just that particular part.
Yeah.
And what happens is, as soon as you get up, the whole crowd go, ah! Because it's interesting, isn't it? People don't want to push themselves to get to that position, but when they see someone else doing it, they're just so inspired.
Yeah. It's a weird thing, because you're right. People want to see that, but not everyone would do that.
No.
But I think it's a natural thing, because I had no idea. I didn't have a contingency plan. If I pull a hamstring, I'm going to get up and run.
Yeah.
That just happened when it happened. I had no idea. That injury was the biggest shock in the world to me, because everything was going right. The problems that I had was with my Achilles tendon, and we managed to circumnavigate the Achilles problem. My medical team, personal and team GB, worked around the clock. And again, I keep naming people. There was a physio called Mike Garmston who used to work with me personally, and he was part of the GB team. He came up with this technique of how to tape up my leg. And he studied this thing. It's like a wishbone way he did it to take the pressure off my Achilles. It took him about 40 minutes every day to tape up my Achilles tendon because of the amount of strips he had to use in the way that he had to do it. And I can't remember, he said, I researched it, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I had to do that whether I was racing or training. Every day would take 30 to 40 minutes just to tape up one of my Achilles tendons in this particular way. So people went above and beyond, and it was it was my Achilles problem. And then to have this hamstring go was just taking the, Michael, I won't swear, was just taking the, and I just couldn't believe it. So it was a shock that happened, and the reaction was just the reaction that I had. I had to finish that race. For me, well, part one, what got me to my feet was I still thought I could qualify. And if when it went down, and I say this a lot, if, I don't know, someone had come around with a magic remote and go, and the whole world had stopped and everyone froze in the moment that they were. And only me and that person, if it was you, and you said, Derek, what are you going to bet if you're going to finish it? And I would have said, yeah, I'll bet everything I own, including my mortgage, I will qualify. Because that was the state of mind that I was in.
Interesting. So you would almost convinced your mental self-conscious. You know what I mean? So it sounds to me like it took your mental self-conscious.
I didn't convince my mental self-conscious. My conscience convinced me that I was, because I'd done all the work. I knew I was one. Of course, I'm going to qualify. Now, I wasn't taking it for granted. I knew there was some work to be done. And again, we're onto that thin line between confidence and arrogance. Yeah. The confidence, I knew, I'd proven to myself, the training, all the years, the nights, the cold nights, the working out the tactics, running the first 2 rounds, everything, all the training, everything that had worked, I'm going to qualify. I need to execute. I need to do this. I know I can. The weather's good. I was in lane 5. Everything that I needed to do, everything was working. My spikes were broken in and the right spike, we'd done everything right. Unless something out of my control was going to happen, if it was all under my control, I was going to qualify. I was going to run a time that would have got me into that final. And something that was out of my control happened that stopped me from doing it. But I still tried to then put that back into control and take back control of it and say, I can still qualify, even though this has been thrown at me. And that's what got me to my feet. And for the first 50 metres of hobbling, I was still convinced that I was going to qualify. And I wasn't looking at the rest of the athletes. They were obviously still sprinting at whatever pace they're going. And it's only when I got to 200 when I looked across the track to see if there was how much I was gaining on them. Of course I wasn't going to be gaining on them when I sit back and look at it now. But like I say, if you had that magic remote, I would say, of course I'm going to. Press play, let me qualify.
Because your mindset's in red. Isn't it? Your mindset's in red because it's like you're so confident that you've done all this work, you've done everything that you should do in the preparation for it. Yeah. So why wouldn't you qualify?
Why wouldn't it? And there's a saying.
That's interesting.
There's a saying: if you think that you can or you think that you can't, you're most probably right.
Yeah.
Because if you believe you can do it, you've got a chance of it. But if you don't believe you can do it, there's a chance that you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And I can't go into anything not being confident. You name me a boxer, even if they're fighting Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, that's gone into the ring and saying, I'm going to get my face smashed in here, but I'll get...
They get their face smashed in.
They go in and they say, I'm going to be the one that's going to, beat him. Yeah. I'm going to be the first one. I'm going to be the one. I raced Michael Johnson, I don't know how many times. Every time I raced him, I thought, I can be... I remember standing in a couple of lanes outside. I was in lane 2, he was in lane 4 or 5 once in a race. And I remember just staring at him. I'm standing there, all stripped off, ready to race. Seconds before the start of the race, I went, right, let me check something. Yep, he's got 2 arms. Yep, he's got 2 legs. He's only got 1 head, 2 ears, 1 nose, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. Yep, we've got the same. He's got the same as me. So this is going to be my day to do what he's done. Because if he can do it, why can't I do it? Yeah. How do I know this isn't the day that I go from here to here, as it did on the 27th of July 1985 when I ran in Oslo? I went from being ranked 7th in Great Britain to 5 in the world. Yeah. Michael Johnson went from here to here. And then once he got there, he kind of said, well, how do we know today is not my day to match him or to get a lot closer to him?
It's about putting in the effort every time that you go and do it, isn't it?
Physically and mentally. 100%. Yeah. So my daughter, one of my daughters, Grace, she got into athletics for a while and she made it into the English schools. And it was a 300 metres final because for her age group, they didn't run 4s, they run 3s. And I had the pleasure of giving out the medals to gold, silver and bronze in the race. And it happened to be her race. And I saw her before the race and she's like, oh, Dad, I've got this person in my race. She's run this time. I've got this person in that race, blah, blah, blah. And I think on paper, Grace was, I don't know, 5th or 6th best. And I said to her, that's what they've done in the past. You got a blank piece of paper, Grace. You can now change history or make history because that is your PB, but that was run then. That's this girl's PB. Anyway, she ended up finishing 2nd.
Awesome.
And she beat 4 or 5 of the girls that had previously had personal best quicker than her.
Yeah.
And I just said to her, don't go on what they have done. Go on what you're going to do today. Forget all that, because that's all in the past. How do you know today? You don't break the world record for 300 metres, because it could happen. Why can't it happen? So just forget all that. Don't be psyched out by what they have done. Be focused on what you can do now. And that was the attitude that I had. And yeah, people were faster than me on paper, but guess what? You don't run on paper. And I raced Michael Johnson, God knows how many times. How many times did I beat him? Once when he didn't show up. But that wasn't the point. The point was, today is my day. Yeah. And something else my dad once told me was, every time you run a 400, go out to break the world record. Because you don't try and break the world record, guess what? You'll never break the world record. I can sit here and wish I make £1 million. We can all do. But if you don't go out there and attempt to make £1 million, and guess what? You ain't going to make £1 million. Whether that's just going and doing the lottery and praying and hoping that you win the lottery, at least you're having a go. Whether that's going out there and setting up a business, whether it's going out there begging, whether it's going out there doing whatever to make that money. If you don't go out and do it, you got no, or attempt to do it, you got no chance of doing it. You give yourself better odds by trying than you do by not trying and just thinking about it. It's just basic common sense.
So I think that there's some stuff that I want to speak to you about how you felt afterwards, but I think we've covered. There's so many different nuances between sports and business and life in general. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
What advice would you give? Because you're obviously happy to come and talk to any company, or any individual or whatever. You're happy to kind of offer your services because you now have a motivational speaking business.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I've been speaking for 26, 27 years. Do sort of personal coaching as well, personal development coaching. Yeah. And speak on a number of subjects. Yeah.
Okay. So you're happy to speak to anyone. They could just reach out to Derek directly. We'll tag him in the podcast and any posts on socials and stuff like that. If there's one thing that you would say that would help, let's say me as a business person, from what you've learned in sports, what would that one quote be?
I think the one thing that I would really say to people, the one thing that you've got to have and develop is self-belief. You've got to have that self-belief, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe in you. People didn't believe in you in your business, they won't be working for you. And if people didn't believe your vision, it doesn't have to be all of it, but if people didn't believe that, you wouldn't have people commit to you. You wouldn't have people that say, do you know what? He's onto something here. I want to be a part of this. So for me, one of the most important ingredients, and it's possibly the start of things, is having that dream and believing that you can achieve it. And it can be, I'm going to take over the world, like in those films.
$1 million.
Or it might be, I just want to lose a bit of weight. I just want to save some money. I just want to move house. Whatever it be, get that and believe in it. Believe that you can achieve it.
Yeah, I think that is very important. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Derek.
My pleasure,
really
my
appreciate
friend.
it.
Yeah, no, it's good.
I really appreciate it.
Brilliant.